Today, we're going to be looking at the K10. It's GMKtec again. We're going to be running benchmarks, testing Windows apps, trying out games in emulation, and yes, we'll also be opening it up to see what's inside. With an elegant design that takes a page out of Lenovo's playbook, the question remains, can this looker perform? Welcome to Team Pandori.
Subscribble.
This unit here was sent to us by GMKtec in exchange for an honest video review. As always, they have no idea what we're going to say, and frankly, neither do we until we put it through its paces. One thing that stands out right away is that the K10 came out after the K11. Is it actually better than the K11? Let's find out, and let's get cracking.
First thing to do is crack this big boy open. The K10 came in a larger version of the GMKtec usual white box, and this one's the 32GB 1TB SKU. Inside, we get a slightly larger mini PC that looks extremely corporate. I mean, apart from the green highlights, it's very 9-inch nails. We also get a card with a multilingual instruction manual inside, a GMKtec branded HDMI cable around 2 meters in length, a power cable selected for the country in which you reside, that'll plug into this power brick. With its DC jack, it's a switching adapter that provides an output of 19 volts, 6.32 amps, up to a maximum of 120.08 watts. We also have 2 Wi-Fi antennae, and a warranty card. Alley-up. So let's take a closer look. We have a steel case in black, with a GMKtec green as highlights. There are small holes at the top which help it breathe, and then we have branding from Intel, as well as GMKtec. Let's move to the front now to see what we got for ports. On the front we've got a nice assortment of holes over here, and underneath that we've got an audio jack, 2 USB 3.2s, a 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C, 2 USB 2.0s, a power button, and a pinhole for BIOS reset. On the right side there's nothing much, but if we get to the back, there are 2 places for Wi-Fi antenna, a COM port of all things for industrial applications, an exhaust for the CPU's heatsink. Along the bottom we have 2 USB 3.2s, a couple of USB 2.0s, 2 HDMI 2.0s, DisplayPort 1.4, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet LAN, DC in, and on the end, a Kensington lock. Kensington? Yes, Kensington. On the left we got more of nothing, and underneath is kind of interesting. There are 2 sets of holes for mounting, one in need of a purposely built plate, and the other large enough for screws. The 4 rubber feet will prevent it slipping around the desk, and we would have preferred them to be a little taller, and the large plate in the middle seems to be an easy access point. There's a thumb screw here, and we'll check out what's underneath later in the video. So let's now move on to the specs. The GMKtec K10 packs an Intel 13th generation i9 processor, the 13900HK. This 14-core, 20-thread processor has 6 P-cores that turbo up to 5.4 GHz, and there's 8 E-cores that turbo up to 4.1. It uses the Iris Xe GPU, and the model we have has 32GB of DDR5 5200 in a dual-channel configuration. The one we have has a 1TB PCIe 4 NVMe. We're happy to see that this has 2 more slots if you fancy adding another 2 sticks. There are plenty of USB ports, perfect if you have many peripherals, but the lack of USB 4 or Oculink port means that the only way to use a fast eGPU is via an adapter from one of the M2 slots. Right now it's on sale on Amazon at around $519, but if you want to double up on the memory, check out the GMKtec website. Sometimes the prices are cheaper here, and if you want to add your own NVMe storage, memory and operating system, it's available for just $420. If you'd like to help out our channel at no additional cost to yourself, please check out our affiliate links down below. It's about time for the size comparison. The GMKtec K10 is much larger than the Beelink EQ13. It's also bigger than the K11, but it stands a little shorter. Here's a 3.5-inch floppy disk, double density, and it's around 4 times the size. And it's a handheld we all own, the Game Boy Advance. Enough talk about sizes, let's swivel on these antennae. Shwing! And after plugging it onto a keyboard, speakers and monitor, we can turn it on and see it boots up to the Windows setup screen. This is only on first boot, and thankfully we don't need to connect to Wi-Fi, which means we can check the whole system for spyware and viruses. We did full scans using Windows Defender as well as Bitdefender, and they both gave us the thumbs up. Checking the system page, all of our specs check out, and in order to activate Windows, we need to simply connect to the internet. Once online, our computer says hi to the Microsoft servers, and then our Windows 11 Pro is fully activated. We can then update our machine, as well as install the latest drivers. As this computer is pretty powerful, regular tasks like Office are a walk in the park. And using it for YouTube in 4K gives us a very decent connection with no frames dropped once the video is playing. As this machine packs multiple cores and fully supports Intel QuickSync, it's a powerhouse for video editing. Here we're in Davinci Resolve and it's absolutely flawless. But now let's move on to the benchmarks. First up is Shizuku, and the NVMe delivers PCIe 4.0 performance, and the speeds are good for a 5000 MB/s stick. Geekbench isn't always generous to Intel, but here the CPU scores are right on top of the Intel lineup. Unfortunately, when it comes to OpenCL and Vulkan performance, it trails behind the 125H and every Ryzen chip from Gen 3 Plus and onwards. But if we jump into TimeSpy, holy cow! This CPU absolutely crushes the competition. As for graphics, same as before. While it gets the best Cinebench score among its peers, it still trails behind AMD's top-tier Ryzen CPUs in strong 3D rendering performance. Here's some CPUs. But let's move on to something that everyone cares about, the Wi-Fi strength test. And with 2 stonking antennae, we get a solid 5 GHz connection without drops, and it's likely that the AX201 is the reason why we only get a score of 70%. But again, we had no drops from Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi. Speeds. So let's pair up our Bluetooth controller, the 8-bit Do Pro 2, and see how this performs in games. First up, Cuphead in 4K. And it's 4K'ing amazing. See what I did there? Dave the Diver, also in 4K. Full speed ahead. Next up, Skyrim Special Edition. At 1080p high, we get full speed in caves, but as soon as you go outside, we get around 48 FPS, just like in real life. Moving on to the more competitive titles now, here's Dota 2 at 1080p best looking, and even in DirectX 11, we're at around 80 FPS. Not bad. Rocket League 1080p high. It's running rather well too. But a bit of slowdown starts to show itself in Fortnite, where a large amount of VRAM definitely would help the numbers. In order to have a good time in this title, lowering graphics settings to medium and limiting frames definitely helps. Now let's move on to Overwatch 2 at 1080p high. And it looks pretty awesome. But if we turn off dynamic resolution, around 50 to 60 FPS. Here's some CS2, 1080p low. It's definitely playable, but my excuse for missing is I need a new mouse. And next up is a game that really pushes the hardware, Cyberpunk 2077. We're here at 1080p low, using Intel XS, and I'm not even going to pretend that this game is playable. Even if you did use FSR3 with FrameGen, we do get better numbers, but just no. Like, can you see the skipping here? It's nuts. Moving on to the BIOS, we have a crap ton of options. We can change TDP settings, and we're happy to see that GMKtec actually ships this set to balanced. We've got Wake on LAN, GPU settings, CPU settings too, as well as more control on the power you want to give your system. We can turn on Secure Boot if you want to play Valorant, or if you're a fan of emulation like us, we can boot up Batocera Linux. I've not updated this since version 40, but both the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are working flawlessly. Or you can play some amazing systems, like the Commodore Amiga, PlayStation 2 upscale to 1080p, or even some Chucky Egg. And for the high tier emulation like the Wii-U, here's some Fast Racing Neo. The first few hits on Hyrule Warriors did slow down the system a bit, but after that, we were hitting full speed of 30 FPS. And for PlayStation 3, is Ridge Racer 7 at 1080p. No problems here. We did, however, hit bumps running Shadows of the Colossus in Vulkan. Unfortunately, we had to switch to OpenGL, and that came with its own set of visual glitches. Bottom line, this title doesn't play nice with Intel iGPUs. So how is the K10 for noise? Well, at idle we're at 43 degrees, and it's pretty much silent. And it sounds like this. Pulling around 10 watts from the wall. In-game, things are looking a little hotter at 77 degrees on the CPU. And again, it is still pretty quiet. And this is pulling around 60 watts from the wall. And when stress testing both GPU and CPU, things do get a little hotter, which raises the noise, as well as the power draw. So let's see if we can fix that by cracking her open. After loosening the screw, we can slide the top open like this, and we're in. So there's the Intel AX201, and we can easily upgrade it if we wish. But this over here is the heatsink and fan, and by unplugging it, then removing the screws, we can easily get underneath. Now that we can see the copper pipes that lead up to the heatsink, we can remove 4 screws using a posi driver, then start to slowly slide and pull up the heatsink, and it should come off quite easily. So if you want to do maintenance by changing thermal paste, for this machine it's a breeze. Just start cleaning up with some alcohol wipes. And today we're going to use some Arctic MX6. Now that is a clear improvement of 80 degrees max. We tried running benchmarks again and also altering the power limit in BIOS. Strangely enough, performance mode actually gave us worse results, while quiet mode delivered the best. And like the culprit, Intel's chip running hot. Cramming that many cores into a tiny space has its drawbacks, and chances are that other systems with this same chip are feeling the heat too. Let's have a look what's under here. Alright, easy enough to open. So we have easy access to the NVMe slots, and the one that we're given here is a P3 Plus from Crucial. If need be, it's possible to add an external GPU via adapter using one of these, but let's populate them with storage. In the second slot we'll use this Orico E7400, a super quick PCIe 4 NVMe, which we reviewed in an earlier video. To install, insert at an angle, flatten, and then screw down. And in the third slot, we're going to use an M2 SATA drive. I know it's old and slow in comparison, but I want to see if it works. And yes, both storage sticks work with flying colours. I think it's about time for the pros and the cons. The GMKtec K10 has a fast CPU, is fairly quiet, and the external antennae help with keeping a solid Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signal. You can easily open up the box and it's extremely easy to maintain. There are 3 M2 slots and multiple USB ports on the outside for all your preferables. As for the cons, the internal GPU is not that great. It'll play some Dota 2 and CS2, but you can forget about those AAAs, especially when it doesn't have an Oculink or USB 4 on the outside. And yeah, Wi-Fi 6.
So is the K10 worth it? Well, it really depends on your needs. If gaming's your focus, a recent Ryzen chip will give far better performance, and GMKtec's K8 or K11 are still solid options for that. But if you're after productivity, video editing, audio work, Intel's got the edge, and with 3 M2 slots, it can double up as a compact NAS. The K10 is not the best all-rounder, but for creative work and productivity, it's good.
So what do you think about the K10? We'd love to hear from you in the comments down below, and summary.
Sits on my desk like it pays council tax. All sharp edges in green and black. 14 cores in a housing so neat. 20 threads and it doesn't smell like Tim's feet. It's like a thing central left at a car boot sale. Does the job well if you're not too frail. Quiet as a whisper till it's pushed too far. Then it moans like a rewinding VCR. Okay, 10, you're a bit of a looker, but you've got charm like a mid-tier cooker. And town is sticking out like it's picking up telly. Waggling around like they're slightly too smelly.
Hey there, thanks for watching to the end of this video. Another huge thank you to all of those on our Patreon. Everyone here is helping us keep the lights on. And if you'd like to support what we do, consider joining us on Patreon. We're also on Discord if you fancy a chinwag, and remember to like and subscribble.
I am John Luke, subscribble.
That's right. This has been me Chicken of Team Pandora, and I'll catch you on the next one. Ta-ra.